Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and my guest today is a brilliant Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me on again. You
Yeah.
may see a four-legged creature walk in the background. That's our new adopted senior dog, Susie.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to see.
Mhm.
So the chess calendar is amazing. It just doesn't allow us to even have one day of rest.
That's right. Yes, a lot of flurry of activity. And of course, the World Championship match starts in 10 days.
Yeah, okay. No, everybody even forgot about that because remember times of Karpov, Kasparov, and even Anand. It was like the celebration of the year. It was the most important chess tournament or match of the year. And today, it's such a great display of chess of all kinds. The World Chess Championship is, what is that? Who's playing there? Nobody remembers anymore.
Mhm. Okay, yep. Great. Dan is coming in. So let's,
Okay.
yep. So let's come into. Hi, great. Okay, welcome.
Hi, Dan. Welcome back.
Hi, Sasha. Hi, Ken. Good to see you both.
Dan
Good.
Fleetwood, also a distinguished professor at Vanderbilt and traveling much more than I have been.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months. I've missed a lot of really exciting chess events during that time.
Mhm. But you were in Europe. You were closer to them, but I guess you couldn't
I
get
was
over.
closer, but in some ways I was farther away because it was the distance in time was more important than the distance in space.
That's true. Chess really has connected up the globe. So I'm sitting here in Buffalo, and we're going to talk about the world champion is in India, in Kolkata, actually, the one city in India where I have a lot of contacts.
Mhm.
And except that I owe a PhD thesis review of one of their students, I should tell them, hey, get over the the venue they're playing is a fantastic modern construction building right across, a couple blocks across from the Victoria and Albert Memorial. That is
Mhm.
the great colonial architecture, which they preserve as a center of the city with parkland. So it's a spectacular venue.
Wow.
Run by Tata Steel. And the other focus is on Pozarevats in Montenegro, where the European Individual is taking place.
Hmm.
Which will see 20 spots into the World Cup, which in turn is a World Championship qualifier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of things are happening, and which tournament would you like us to showcase?
Well, we'll put on Carlsen versus Erigaisi. So Erigaisi has been running up the ranks, and he is also quite a talent. He's kind of not received as much press as other people, but he slid over 2,000. He was leading early on in the Chennai Masters tournament that was just held, and then he fell back a bit. And Arvind Chitambara, who himself was a noted prodigy 10 years ago, caught him at the end. So I'll share this just to the tab of the game.
Okay.
This is a very much another example of an uncompromising game. So Sicilian defense, but comes in. I think this is a Can variation with the early queen c7. No, Taimanov variation. I'm sorry. Can might not have the knight on c6, but anyway. So the idea is that Black is going to go for accelerate queenside counterplay, okay, even at the cost of developing the king side. But Black's formation of pawns d7, e6, f7 is very solid. It's hard for White to break through, especially if White is not playing to open up the f5. Well, we'll see all those themes come into play. So White castles queenside right into Black's play, but now White has free reign over the center and an enormous lead in development. So it's really a question of can White's lead in development affect a breakthrough, or will black's pressure on the queen side prove out? Okay, so it's prudent to get the king out of the line of black's two pieces on the file. And now white starts advancing, but black has managed to bring another piece over to the queen side, so eliminated one of white's defenders. Interesting thing, actually, just to notice, should notice these things. Why can't we grab a pawn? Well, the reason why we can't grab a pawn is that if you take the knight with the bishop, there is a skewer on your rook. And if you take the knight with the pawn, well, this is very sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's just sad.
It's bad. Well, actually, it's bad. Still worth definitely looking at. So this is where black's lack of development caused. Black is up an entire piece. However, white is simply going to infiltrate, and the computer can see ahead a lot better than a human being can, that black is not going to be able to defend this position. But a human being can make the estimate that says, I'm never getting my rook out of that corner. And my king is going to be hunted down on this diagonal, on these diagonals at some point. Okay, so some of these positions the computer can defend, but it's a little important detail. So black keeps the play in front of him, so to speak, by capturing the bishop. Now white guards the pawn. Now black wins a pawn.
Wow.
And wow is right. But it is the best move, and the computer actually gives black a slight advantage from this position. Like saying, wow, I can poke the lion and get away with it. But here we go. Yeah, we stop to munch a pawn. The one effect of munching that pawn is it is going to limit white's pawn storm options on the king side. And the other point, though, is that black, again, erects a light square blockade. So all of black's pawns are on light squares, and yet black's light squared bishop is not inconvenienced. It has the best perch on the board on d5, where it can't really be disturbed, although white can try to trade it and then break through on the files. So black has this bulwark, but white can try to storm it. So this, I guess, is a regrouping to try to put pressure on the king side. Black's never going to castle in a million years, but still. So now black guards the one soft point, f7, and now again affirms the hold on the diagonal. Black has prevented white from playing bishop e4, which would eliminate black's best piece on the board. So now white brings the rook up. This is a very useful defender. Now what's interesting about this game is that white ultimately loses because he traps, I think, this rook, self-traps this rook on a square. And I could maybe make an audience bet to say, on what square of the board is this rook going to be entombed?
I'll say A1.
A1, okay. You're right. I think you're right in a different sense, that is the square on which white ultimately does lose a rook. I don't know if you've seen the game where you just have a good spider set.
I just usually I look at the least likely square on the board for a piece to be entombed when someone issues that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the one thing that I know in this position is it will not be the pawn on b2 that delivers the mate on like h or f7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what it is. So I look at this and it's like, well, it's impossible to get the rook over to a1. But if white manages to do that, his position will probably be horrible.
Okay, so here's another question. Which player mounts a decisive invasion on the G file?
Probably black.
Yes, black, not white. Even though white seems to have
so I've gotten rolled on the white side of so many of these positions that I know a lot of way to lose these. It's really hard for white to find a productive plan here. I mean, white's best plan here is, as the rook to g3 is, kind of dig in and hope black goofs up.
Yeah. Well, computer agrees with you, and Carlsen now really starts the queenside play going in earnest. white, you know, if white had a G pawn, maybe white could mount a storm, but white's has no breakthroughs on the king side. We'll see black gets the breakthrough there. Okay, so white judges to isolate black's pawn, and actually now white decides to remove a pawn that could storm white's queen side, at the cost, however, of opening up the A file for black's pieces. Black is better able maybe to take advantage of that than white is. Now, actually,
the computer thinks this is equal, right?
Right. So somewhere here, the computer may be looking ahead. So the computer thinks black is the advantage. Queen takes b4. And now the computer actually prosaically did want black to take over the A file just by playing rook a8 and queen a4. Okay, so this is an unnecessary move that maybe gives white an important tempo for a defense, or in this case, just removing an attacked piece. Okay, so now black plays to the A file. Okay, probably.
Why not have bishop c5 in this position? Why doesn't it work?
Let's see. That's a good question. What's bishop c5? Are we going to get mated? It just says queen e3, and maybe it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think it just simplifies the position and makes it easier to defend.
Yeah.
And that pawn on e5 really just limits white's ability to play on the dark squares. So that's a.
It is in the way, yeah. And white's never managed to get his bishop to g5 to trade off black's bishop. Okay, so rook a8, b3, a committal move, but white does have to do something sometime like that, because the a1 square has to be defended somehow, and white's rook on g3 is making it unlikely that black can make a kamikaze sacrifice on that square. Now, most natural defensive move you could imagine, bishop b2, you know, closing avenues on the king side, but actually the computer wants white to get out of dodge. You know, this is an incredibly complicated position, and black has the option g5 here, closing white down. Okay, so anyway, I played bishop b2, queen a2 check. Now black, the computer wanted black to play g5 and just, you know, full court press, g5 and f6. Now black opening a second front. However, this is very normal. Now you are threatening a sacrifice on b3, not a sacrifice, just winning. So white plays c4. So white is beginning to construct the tomb for his g3 rook. But this looks like a very strong move because, you know, b3 is a solid defense, and we have finally knocked black's bishop out of d5. Okay, well, not yet. The pawn's pinned. So black takes time to capture. White plays queen. King c2 actually would have been okay. Now black has taken over the g file.
As you said.
Yes. So while king c2, this should have been played earlier. One point is this is setting up rook a1, trapping the queen. So black withdraws the queen. And now here white enters its tomb, breaking the pin, forcing black's bishop to move. But there we go. Now, this is suddenly very embarrassing for white, and maybe in a rapid game when you're down to 1 minute left, it doesn't really occur to you that, oh no, I have self-trapped my rook on c3. So anyway, so attack the queen, but now white lacks key moments for defense. So already the computer can tell that black is winning. So there's somehow the rook c3 move just lost a key tempo that would have been better had by playing bishop f3 to get rid of the bishop, or rook a1 to and rook a7 to get some counterplay. Counterplay against black's d7, which is the one weak square he has. But
I mean, it's brutally ugly.
Yeah. So now this is already winning for black. Here comes the other invasion, and so now white, you know, had to make those concessions in order to free the rook on c3, and now black's on top of everything else. Black is making a queen, so white goes to stop that. But here comes the rook on a1 being lost. So that's finally the material concession that Erigaisi made, and after one cheapo, hoping for a perpetual check of the bishop's taken, Erigaisi gave up with 20 seconds left.
Brutal game.
Yeah,
Yep.
brutal, but just enterprising. That you got to say that, and certainly playing to Carlsen's strength at keeping a position together.
Well, I know that these are the top 2 players in the world, but if you looked at this game, you would say that white is a full rating class below black in this game.
Yeah, that's probably justified. Yes, but white was strategically as well as tactically outplayed. Okay, so now, so Carlsen won the rapid phase. There's a blitz phase now, and then an overall winner. There's also a ladies tournament in Kolkata, and so that was won by Alexandra Goryachkina, whom I always wonder, is she going to take the next step and be a solidly 2,600 player? I mean, her rapid rating is actually under 2,500. But she contended for the Women's World Championship 4 years ago. So I've always been left wondering, when is she going to make the?
Yeah, I think her strength is just about fully equal to Ju and Jen.
Yeah, it should be.
Both very strong players. I
Right.
think high 2,500s, low 2,600s in terms of capability already.
Yeah. Now
Maybe is not as accurate in her game. Sometimes she makes mistakes. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Miscalculations.
I do believe, and I've been dialoguing in a Facebook item by Grandmaster Keith Arkell about this. So I concur that there's a general deflation of 25 to 35 ELO points right now among
I've seen it on Facebook discussion.
2,600-ish players. But with women, I think it's closer to 75 ELO, although the evidence has been muddied up a little bit with the last 2 women's Grand Prix tournaments. So if Goryachkina is 75 points underrated, then her 25-28 standard rating would be 2,600.
Yeah.
So maybe that is about her strength. In any event, she showed quality in Kolkata.
Yeah, but if you're always playing like 24-45 players and 24-55 players, you're going to get into some positions where you're a little bit uncomfortable, and you're occasionally going to lose a game you shouldn't have lost, and that's going to hold you back as long as you keep playing that sea of lower rated, especially lower rated and improving players. So.
Yeah.
But you know what? Erigaisi, who has second highest rating, he's got most of his points in the open tournaments.
Yeah,
he was not invited to top tournaments unlike others, but he was keep grinding and winning tournament after tournament. So he could argue about this issue of disinflation of elements.
Well, I think we all know chess players who really beat up on weaker comps regularly and easily beat up on weaker competition, but struggle with stronger competition. We also know folks who kind of play to the level of their competition, of playing strongly against stronger players, and then kind of, not really focusing on that. So a lot of that just has to go with kind of like a person's, kind of like your personality and,
One example of that to watch is will Hans Niemann take a comfortable place among the 2750 plus elite. So
yeah, exactly.
That will certainly be interesting.
Yeah. So talking about large Swiss tournaments and players in the lower echelon, below these 2750 elite, I have a game from the leader of the European individual, which is really a masterpiece of the power of the 2 bishops. And 2 bishops even shedding pawns. So the winner of this game sheds 2 pawns. So this is Alexander Indic, who is from Croatia. I guess that's the Croatian flag. That was 6.5 out of 7. So he actually won So he beat Vladimir Fedoseev, who's in the 2700 club just now. Okay, I didn't see that result posted before. Playing against Maxim Chigayev, another one, the 2600 plus Super Grandmaster type players. So Indice is white, and so we get Queen's Gambit play. B6 is how I would handle these positions. Nothing to criticize about Black's play. This is the normal counterplay, and now it's really jockeying and maneuvering and deciding what pawn structure. So this does now right away lead to classic isolated queen pawn position for White, whose advantage is that White can use that pawn for outpost on E5 and general pressure in the center.
Yeah, this is a position where when you look at it, and it's like, well, this game could have been played in any one of the last 100 years or so.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
So A4 conceding space but preventing B5. Black occupies the space. There's White's outpost, and now the isolated queen pawn has been solved. But this is still completely equal. But now here's a very fateful juncture of the game. The computer says in order to keep, complete equality, Black must concede the bishop square. Okay, and be able to use a strong square for the knight. In other words, if you just retreat the knight, then you're making a space concession in the center. So here we go. And now knight on strong square. This should be fine. I was never so optimistic when I had this kind of position for White. So, Black should be fine, but the knight is eventually going to meet the saddest end you can imagine. So what's the worst square on the board for that knight?
It's not H1.
It's not H1. No, it's in its own half of the board.
In its own half of the board, I would really hate to have that knight on A7.
Yes. Okay. A7. Yeah. So you're quite close. So that's how does White bring that about? That's the black magic that's going on here. Okay. So the knight, however, is very neatly ensconced on B4. So I guess when you evaluate a two bishops position against bishop and knight, the first thing you ask is, does the knight have anchor squares? And if the knight does, then usually there's compensation here. And Black's knight is two anchor squares, B4, and D5. And White's bishop on G3 is no great shakes. It's blocked by the pawn. However, with two bishops versus bishop and knight, pawn weaknesses matter more. And Black has one pawn weakness, which has in fact just been emphasized by Black's last move, that is moderately difficult for Black to cover. And it's the pawn on the dark square B6. So White occupies center. Now we're going to, so White goes for space, Black goes for trading. White does have a pawn to guard. And so this is an interesting juncture. Why not grab the pawn for Black? Well, Black actually is going to get that pawn. No, it's going to get the other pawn. But yeah, so actually Black is doing well. Why not? Why didn't Black grab the pawn? Black must have, Black may have been afraid of this rook incursion. Okay. And it turns out that in fact, yeah, it's awkward to defend, this bishop. There's, it can move, but if it moves to A6, then Queen E4 is going to start attacking. However, Black has his own attack here. And so this maybe wasn't evaluated correctly by Chigayev, that Black's attack is just as good as White's. So Black.
Yeah, I would have had a hard time convincing myself of that as Black too.
Yeah. So Black decides to, naturally get rid of the pressure. Here we go. So now it's just the queens. And this is now actually sliding toward the reality that if it were just queen and knight versus queen and bishop, you would prefer to have the queen and knight. In fact, if the light square bishops are traded in this position, then I definitely am on Black's side of this. But, okay, so anyway, White has an outpost. Now Black's knight comes here. Okay, so we trade queens. So this must be accounted a misjudgment, but actually white already has pressure. So the other thing is, white has a latent ability to capture the knight on d5, and queen and bishop against opposite color bishop has definite attacking possibilities. Plus, black's pawns on the queen side are fixed on dark, so in a position like that, they're going to fall. And it's not clear that black can win both of white's pawns in compensation. So anyway, Chagayev, down actually to 4 minutes, decide let's simplify further. But this comes at a cost. So the cost is that if you bring the knight to d5, then latently that knight's going to fall. Now that's what black should have done. Black instead played the very sorry move, knight a8.
Oh, so, that's just awful. I mean, a6 has got to even be better than a8.
Yeah, setting a pawn. Yeah. So, but anyway, knight d5 is the thing to do, and f3, and then we'll thrash around a bit, but eventually white I'll play bishop a2 now. So, so white will be able to win 2 pawns for 1, but this should be tenable for black. I mean, this computer has winning the pawn as being the third best move. Not much different from just shuttling around, maybe activating the king. But anyway, what's going on in this position is that black is able to win back 1 pawn because that pawn was fixed. And okay, so this is difficult because white has possibility of penetrating on the king side after forcing the g7 pawn to move. So this, I wouldn't be super comfortable of my ability to draw this as black. Okay, nevertheless, it's a better fate than what actually happened to black in this game with the knight going to a8. Okay. So g6, going to happen sooner or later, but when is black going to bring the king into the game? Well, there is an impediment to bringing the king into the game. So king f8, f3, and now, let's see, black does not play king e8. So why was black possibly afraid of playing king e8? Such a natural move. Okay, well, bishop g5. Now you can bring your knight out. Bishop e3, and now you have to commit yourself to again putting the knight here. And actually, it's better because after you retake, you'll get both of white's pawns for yours. So this is.
I think this looks fine.
Yeah, this looks fine. So why didn't black do that? So it's time pressure, of course, one reason. But anyway, putting the bishop on d5 instead of the knight, and this is what black probably overlooked or underestimated. So now white is said to be winning by the king. And the funny thing is, this is not white's intent to trap the knight right away because black can play bishop d5 to rescue it.
Oh, I suspect that was all that he checked.
Yeah. So the real point of this position, though, is that white's dead. But you don't have to. The knight's dead. And not only that, now I'm covering e8, so you're not going to get
playing almost a knight and a king down in this position because it takes multiple moves to get any activity. Wow.
Yeah. So this is 2 bishops dominating the board, even at the cost of a pawn. Well, white's going to stack more than that. That's what makes this remarkable. So here we go. So black did capture. Okay, so now the thing is, again, looks like black is covering everything, but black is not going to be able to keep white from filtering into this position. So someone said that there was a Zugzwang motif in this position, and I have not found that. Okay, but what is going to happen is that black is going to have trouble preventing white from getting a passed pawn on the king side. Okay, so black cannot stop this.
What's happened if bishop f3? Oh, yeah, it was played, yeah.
Okay, so now if you capture with the bishop, then bishop c6 really traps the knight. So black has to capture with the pawn. Now white is down 2 pawns, but this must be where the Zugzwang motif is. So now white plays here. This isn't the position that was said to have the motif, but this now is an amazing Zugzwang. Okay, because you can't move the bishop this way.
Yeah. Because of the knight.
And if you move the bishop this way, then white is able to just capture an h-pawn.
Yeah, then you get a passed h-pawn.
Yeah, get a past h-pawn, which is going to be decisive because black's knight is nowhere near the defense. So the only other option is to withdraw the king.
That's
Now-
amazing. He's 2 pawns down and completely lost. I'm sorry, 2 pawns up and completely lost.
Yep, 2 ones up, completely lost. The computer shows a val over 4. So I would actually even be pruning this position because white's win is over my 4.0 advantage is over my 4.0 threshold. But this now is more Zugzwang. Now black can't play king g8 because then bishop e8 is curtains. So black finally has to move the bishop. And now after a little bit of prefatory maneuvering, there's absolutely nothing black can do to stop. Well, let's see. So what is going on? Well, actually, what's going on is that white's king now has an entryway to eat that knight. So if bishop f3 to guard the h-pawn, then bishop e8. Never mind. Black can't guard with bishop g6 anymore. So this is falling apart at the seams. So in this position, black gave up.
Oh, you remember that Tarash was saying that knight on b6 for black is a lousy space for a knight and should be avoided, but a8 is much worse, as we can see in the game.
Yeah. So this was just an incredible domination.
I never seen that game before, but this is it's really awful. The knight went on a8. It was definitely beginning of the end. There was no way to save the game anymore. Well, I think we are approaching the end of our program. I would like to thank you so much for today's games, and I would like to have you a great weekend and all our listeners. And we'll see you.
I'll say just in the end, go do look at Injate's win today because it's a dance of the knights down a rook. So he showed he can manage his knights as well as his bishops. So.
Okay, would be interesting. Okay. So we'll see you next week, same place, same time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.